he's got certain contractual obligations as well. It's certain things he has to do.
Here is the content rewritten as flowing paragraphs. Katt Williams has built his reputation over many years as one of the most outspoken and fearless voices in American comedy and entertainment. He has never shied away from challenging powerful figures, speaking uncomfortable truths in public settings, or saying things that most people in his position would be too cautious to ever voice out loud. That reputation took on a new dimension when he reportedly called out Joel Osteen during a live television appearance, leaving the studio audience visibly stunned and setting off a wave of intense reactions across social media platforms. The moment struck a nerve with millions of people, not simply because of who was being criticized, but because of the depth and seriousness of what was being said. To understand why the moment landed so powerfully, it helps to look at the broader argument Katt Williams has been making for years. For Katt, the Joel Osteen situation is not some random or isolated attack on a religious figure. It fits directly into a much larger conversation he has been having about exploitation, performance, and the hidden mechanics of power and influence in American society. He has argued repeatedly that the darker and more troubling side of Hollywood does not stay confined within the entertainment industry. In his view, it bleeds into many other corners of public life, and religion is no exception. People who followed his now legendary interview on Club Shay Shay will remember how he went after Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and Kevin Hart. What many viewers noticed was that his criticism went far deeper than comedy or career rivalry. He accused those men of becoming willing participants in a larger system where people adopt certain roles, maintain certain images, and play certain games in order to protect their fame, their money, and their access to power. He extended that same critique outward, arguing that many of the most powerful and celebrated figures in entertainment, business, and religion are essentially performing for the public rather than living with any genuine sincerity. One of Katt's central points is that a friendly smile, a warm personality, and a polished public image do not automatically make someone a good or trustworthy person. He used Joel Osteen as a direct example of this idea. When most people look at Osteen, they see an enormous church, a globally televised ministry, a string of best-selling books, and a lifestyle surrounded by considerable wealth. To Katt, all of that is a carefully constructed character, one that has been designed and maintained to attract followers, build loyalty, and generate a fortune. He questions whether the real focus of Osteen's ministry is spiritual guidance and genuine care for people, or whether it is performance, popularity, and profit dressed up in religious language. He draws a direct comparison to the way Hollywood often rewards image management, personal connections, and playing by unspoken rules over actual talent or genuine contribution. In the same way that the entertainment industry can be driven more by politics than by merit, Katt suggests the world of megachurches operates on similar principles. He believes figures like Osteen may prioritize protecting their personal brand and maintaining their public image over truly serving the people who look to them for guidance and spiritual leadership. These criticisms have found a large and receptive audience online, where many people have been voicing similar doubts about Osteen for years. Some describe him as more of a motivational speaker than a traditional preacher, someone whose primary appeal is making people feel uplifted and positive about themselves, rather than guiding them through genuine theological depth. Others have been far harsher in their assessments, calling him a false teacher, a fraud, and someone fundamentally unqualified for the spiritual role he occupies. Katt Williams is not breaking new ground by raising these questions, but he is raising them louder and with greater visibility than most, which is precisely what makes his comments so striking and so polarizing. This is consistent with how Katt has operated throughout his career. He has long claimed that Hollywood is controlled by powerful elites who demand compliance and conformity from those who want to succeed within their circles. He has suggested that reaching the top of entertainment often comes with hidden costs and uncomfortable compromises. He has positioned himself as someone willing to say publicly what many others know privately, but are too afraid to speak. He has also been careful to note that his criticism of religious figures like Osteen is not a criticism of faith itself. At one point, he stated that whatever name people use for God, he takes that subject seriously and does not mock genuine belief. His argument is not that religion is wrong. His argument is that some very powerful people are using the language and imagery of religion to build personal empires while calling it ministry. What makes the accusation particularly sharp is that Katt is not simply saying Osteen is wealthy or that his theology is questionable. He is saying that Osteen may not be real at all in any meaningful sense. He is suggesting that the warm, calm, ever-smiling persona the public sees on television could be a performance, something crafted and maintained as deliberately as any actor maintains a character. If that claim lands with any credibility, the stakes of the conversation change entirely. It stops being a debate about prosperity theology or church finances and becomes something much more unsettling. A question about whether millions of people are placing their faith and their money in someone who is essentially playing a role. The prosperity gospel sits at the center of much of this controversy. Katt Williams has made his rejection of it completely clear. In his view, the prosperity gospel represents a fundamental distortion of what Christianity is supposed to be about. He believes the original message of the faith was centered on gratitude, humility, compassion, and genuine care for people who are suffering, not on accumulating wealth as a sign of divine approval. He argues that modern preachers connected to this movement have turned faith into a transactional business, convincing followers that prayer and financial donations to the church will result in God rewarding them with riches and success. He finds this deeply troubling because he believes it exploits people who are already vulnerable, people who are desperate for hope and willing to give money they cannot afford because they have been told that doing so will unlock blessings in their lives. He is particularly critical of the way tithing gets framed within this movement. Genuine generosity and gratitude are one thing. But Katt believes many followers are essentially being told they are purchasing blessings, that their financial contributions are investments in a spiritual transaction that will pay off in material rewards. He sees that framing as predatory, a system that profits from people's emotions, their fears, and their most sincere desires for a better life. He places Osteen squarely within this tradition and questions how a pastor can speak so frequently about humility and spiritual devotion, while surrounded by the kind of wealth and luxury that Osteen enjoys. He points out that while Osteen has stated publicly that he does not take a salary from Lakewood Church, he still earns enormous amounts of money through book deals, speaking appearances, and other commercial ventures built entirely on his religious celebrity. To Katt, that distinction is a technicality that does nothing to change the fundamental picture. He groups Osteen alongside other famous figures associated with the prosperity gospel, including Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar, and Benny Hinn, all of whom have faced their own considerable public criticism over the years. The private jets, the luxury homes, the carefully managed public images, and the enormous financial empires they have built all point, in Katt's view, to a deep contradiction between what is being preached and how these men are actually living. He believes the history of this movement is filled with financial scandals, questionable fundraising tactics, and a pattern of behavior that raises serious ethical questions. Osteen, in his view, is not an exception to that pattern. He is one of its most visible and successful representatives. The backlash against Osteen extends well beyond Katt Williams and has been building for many years across many different groups of people. Critics consistently point to moments when his public behavior seemed to conflict with the compassionate image he projects. The Hurricane Harvey disaster in 2017 became perhaps the most damaging moment in terms of public perception. As floodwaters devastated Houston and families desperately searched for shelter, Lakewood Church, one of the largest and wealthiest churches in the entire country, initially did not open its doors to evacuees. The church offered explanations about the building being flooded, but people on social media quickly began posting images and videos that called those explanations into question. The online pressure became overwhelming, and the church eventually opened its doors. However, for an enormous number of people watching, the damage to Osteen's image was permanent. The incident confirmed a suspicion many had already held, that there was a significant gap between the compassionate message he delivered from his pulpit and the way he actually responded when people around him were suffering. That perception was reinforced again in February 2024 when a tragic shooting took place at Lakewood Church. A 7-year-old child was critically injured, and a woman lost her life, as emergency responders filled the area and reporters gathered. Outside, Osteen gave interviews and was observed smiling while discussing the tragedy. Many people watching found that deeply disturbing and interpreted it as further evidence of a disconnect between his public persona and genuine human empathy. A 2021 incident added yet another unsettling layer to the ongoing public skepticism. A plumber working at the church reportedly found hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and checks hidden inside a wall. The church had previously reported a similar amount stolen years earlier, and the discovery immediately sparked intense speculation online about financial practices and whether there were deeper secrets within the ministry that had never been made public. Joel Osteen's path to becoming one of the most famous religious figures in the world was not a straightforward or traditional one. He was born in Houston, Texas, in March 1963, one of 6 children raised by his father John Osteen, a Southern Baptist pastor who founded Lakewood Church in the back of a converted feed store. Joel attended Humble High School and graduated in 1981. Then went on to study radio and television communications at Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma. He left without finishing his degree and returned to Houston in 1982, where he began working behind the scenes at the church, eventually creating and producing its television program. He was ordained through his father's church in 1983 and spent roughly 17 years working alongside his father in a production and media capacity rather than as a preacher. When his father died suddenly from a heart attack in January 1999, Joel preached his first sermon shortly after and was officially named senior pastor of Lakewood Church later that same year. In 2003, the church purchased the former Compaq Center, which had previously been home to the Houston Rockets basketball team, and transformed it into the massive modern worship venue that tens of thousands of people attend today. The full picture that emerges from Katt Williams' criticism and the broader public debate surrounding Joel Osteen is one of genuine unresolved tension. There are millions of people who find real comfort, hope, and inspiration in Osteen's message, and who credit his ministry with positive changes in their lives. And there are millions of others who look at the same man and see something troubling, a system built more on image, performance, and financial incentive than on authentic spiritual leadership. Katt Williams is not claiming to have personal knowledge of who Joel Osteen truly is behind closed doors. He is asking a larger and harder question about what happens when faith becomes a brand, when ministry becomes entertainment, and when the trappings of wealth and celebrity become so intertwined with religious leadership that it becomes genuinely difficult to tell where the performance ends and the sincerity begins. That question, uncomfortable as it is, continues to resonate far beyond any single interview or viral moment, because it touches on something many people are already quietly wondering about: the nature of modern faith, modern influence, and the people who profit most from both.